So there's two types of perspective that we normally think of when we're talking about perspective. There's linear perspective, which is kind of the way that lines recede into the distance. We typically think of 1 point and 2 point perspective. But there's also another type of perspective called an arial perspective or atmospheric perspective. And that's kind of what gives us the depth perception that we're often looking for in a landscape painting. You'll often hear people talk about the layers of a painting, and I know like this is something that I've often struggled with a lot with my painting still to this day, so it's something that I'm always working on. But basically, utilizing atmospheric perspective, it gives you depth perception in your painting. And it essentially is that the things that are farther away from you are going to be lighter in tone or tonal value, however you want to say that. And they'll also have less contrast compared to things that are closer to you. So if you think about just in terms of raw distance, the things that are farthest away from you in your scene will have less contrast between the darkest objects and the lightest objects at that distant point in distance. So if you're talking about like trees a mile away, the dark and the light of those trees will be closer together in tonal values than the dark and light of trees that are close to you, 10 feet away. And then when we're working in color, oftentimes things in the farthest distance will seem more blue, but also more desaturated. And so, but otherwise that principle doesn't really apply to this sketch that I'm doing here because I'm just isolating the tonal values to create atmospheric perspective. So I'm just using black and white in this sketch. So like I was saying, when you're doing plein air painting or an urban sketch or drawing or whatever, you want to think about it as having layers in terms of distance. So you want to divide it in your mind as to like what's farthest away from you, and then what's closer, and then what's closer, and then what's closer, until you're painting objects that are like directly in front of you, and so on and so forth. So when I'm looking at this scene, essentially the sky is the farthest thing away from me, and then the skyscrapers, and then that band of trees right below it, and then there's some buildings about 2 blocks away, and then this house that I'm painting right now is about 1 block away, and then there's going to be trees and light posts in front of this house that are like maybe 25 or 30 feet away from where I'm standing right now. And so each one of those I'm going to gradate in terms of their tonal value to bring them forward by painting them darker. So as objects get closer to me in these layers, I'm going to paint them darker and with more contrast. So yeah, the things, I guess another way to just say that or think about it is the things that are closest to you will contain the brightest brights and the darkest darks. And the things farthest away from you, the brightest bright and the darkest dark are going to be much closer together. So like kind of how I would describe it is like a black object, which honestly this skyscraper that I'm painting is like mostly a silver and black building, as a lot of skyscrapers are. This building here is also a black building. And so, but a black object in front of you, 10 feet away, is going to look black. But, these buildings are maybe like 6 or 7 miles away. They're going to seem much more gray, right? And the farther away you went, the lighter that gray would be. And this is because contrast is compressed visually the farther away something is. So the difference between the dark and light gets closer together the farther back in space you go. And so as you're dealing with atmospheric perspective, if you can look at the scene ahead of time and divide it in your mind in terms of the layers like we were talking about, and then you can think about, like for me, I'm kind of thinking about this in, I guess, 4 or 5 layers. Like the sky is 1 layer, then the skyscrapers is a 2nd layer, then the band of trees is the 3rd layer, then the apartment buildings 2 blocks away is another layer, then the house that I'm working on right now is a 5th layer, and then the trees and fence posts and light posts and things like that are my last layer. And I think about, another aspect to this that I'm utilizing, which is the concept of overlapping shapes. And if you think about, like, when you're doing a painting, try to, paint or draw a shape, and then think like what's behind that shape, and then think what's behind that shape, and then think what's behind that shape. If you can create a composition like that, it really simplifies this process for creating depth. And that's another aspect of perspective as well. And typically, as you've heard me talk like in other videos, the sky is your highest plane in terms of tonal value. So that's why I use pure white here. But a lot of times, basically, other than occlusion shadows, which would be like the shadow directly underneath, say, the tire of a car or something, that would be your darkest dark. But in terms of like planes in space, your vertical planes will often be your darkest dark. So if you think about the skyscrapers in the distance and these trees that I'm laying in here, they're both verticals. So, but because these trees are much closer to me than those skyscrapers, which are miles away, I'm painting these trees much closer to black. Whereas the skyscrapers are pretty much my lightest gray in this scene. And so if you can think about managing atmospheric or aerial perspective in addition to your linear perspective, that will really, really help create that sense of depth. Even sometimes if your linear perspective, if your drawing is off a little bit, I think that utilizing aerial perspective can cover for a multitude of sins with the drawing. So try these tips out. Remember, you have a voice that matters. Go be creative, and I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we're going to do some more of your comments here before we shut down the video. Irresponsible Pictures 7451 says, another fantastic video, Danny. Are you open to commissions? And yes, I'm 100% open to commissions. You guys can find me on social media and reach out to me. Or, if you want to do email, reach out to me in a comment and I'll send you my email. But yeah, I love doing commissions. I've done several commissions for people who found me on YouTube. And that's one of my favorite things to do. I love doing that. So we're gonna make that happen. We're gonna make that happen, and that's probably gonna be a video. So keep your eyes out for that. Whoa, Plock65 said, also my favorite video. I agree. It's a time management issue. When we need to reset our thinking, instead of saying, I have no free time, we need to say, I choose to do something else with my free time. That's the real truth in most cases. Stating it this way helps identify time-wasting activities that can be used for a quick sketch. And that was on a community post of one of my favorite videos. I posted a video from 4 years ago, the last time that I did daily art. And I had done art every day for 2 years, and I made a video about that. I'll link that down below in the description because that is still to this day one of my all-time favorite videos. So we were talking about, just how do you manage your time in terms of doing daily art and making that happen. And he said, it's a time management issue. That's really what's kind of been hitting me as I'm doing that this year, is thinking about, instead of saying like, man, I need more time, but actually realizing that it's not so much needing more time, it's about making choices about what you're going to do with the time that you have. And I think like that's true in life with everything, right? And we have various responsibilities, but right now I think it's kind of like prioritizing those responsibilities and thinking about, how important is building this art skill and this art habit and being creative into my life, and where does that fit in and how do I make time for that? So I think you're 100% right. All right, guys, I think we'll probably leave it off on that. Thank you so much for watching these videos. As always, I'm so appreciative for every comment that you give and every view and like. You guys mean the world to me, and I'm doing these videos for you. So if you have any comments, leave them down below and I'd be happy to respond to them. And thank you also to anybody who's leaving a super thanks. I'm using that money to help me buy a new tripod for my camera so I can keep making videos like this. But even with all the interaction, you guys mean the world to me. I'm doing this for you, and I'm so thankful for the community we've built here. So remember, you have a voice that matters. Go be creative. I'll see you next time.